Let's welcome back Harrison, and we'll shift gears and go back to some of these players that have gone to different teams this offseason. And so we're going to kind of do a little old faces and new places and determine if we think they will score more or less points than they did last year, more or less fantasy points than last year. And so I'll ask you, Harrison. Tyreek Hill goes from Kansas City to Miami. Patrick Mahomes to Tua. Sounds like Hill's all excited. He's already been downplaying Mahomes, but he was wide receiver 6 last year with 296 points. Higher or lower this year?
So I think he's going to finish lower than he did last year. I still think he's going to have a great season, but you look at what this team wants to do, and I think it's very obvious. Even though they traded for Tyreek Hill, they want to run the ball. Mike McDaniels comes over from the San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan scheme, which loves to run the ball, where he was the offensive coordinator and run game coordinator. And then he signs 3 running backs in free agency. So that tells you they want to run the ball. Tua's not going to be throwing it all over the field like a lot of people might think. And now Hale has to come in and compete with Gesicki and Waddle for targets, and they signed Cedric Wilson as well.
I
I
like
just
Wilson.
don't see the path for him to have that super high target volume and get those downfield 80-yard bombs that he was getting with Patrick Mahomes. Still think he'll be solid, but he definitely will not be a top 10 wide receiver this year, in my opinion.
Ooh, all right. I'm even willing to say he'll be worse than that. I'm not in on Tyreek Hill. I'm not a big fan of boomer bust guys. That's more of a philosophy for me, and I find him to be that, where he'll have unbelievable games and then he'll disappear. Imagine in Miami with Tua. Are you kidding me? It's going to get ugly. He won't be worth the price of where you have to draft him, because people will still buy into what he previously did. So I'm in agreement for the most part with you, but I would even take it a step further. So go ahead.
All right, I'll ask you one now. Davante Adams, the other big receiver that was moved from Green Bay to Las Vegas, he finishes the wide receiver 2 last year behind Cooper Kupp with 344 points. Do you think he finishes higher or lower than that mark?
So I'm going to say lower. However, I am all in on the Las Vegas Raiders this year, and I am targeting Raiders players in my drafts. I want Adams. I want Hunter Renfrow. I especially want Derek Carr, and I want Darren Waller. And because I think you can get Darren, actually, speaking of tight ends, I think you can get Darren Waller for a steal. But I believe Carr will spread the ball around, especially between those 3 guys, and Carr will be the one with the big season, and Adams is still going to be solid. So he'll still be a top 10 wide receiver. I'm not sure he'll be number 1 or 2, but I think he'll love that he doesn't have to carry the whole offense. Aaron Rodgers, it didn't spread it around as much. It was all in on Adams. I think Hunter Renfrow is underrated, and even heading into this season after his huge year last year, he's still underrated. So I like the overall weapons of the Raiders, and so he'll be slightly less, but he'll still probably be in that 5 range. So not much of a drop off, just a hair. All right, how about your boy Allen Robinson, who leaves the Bears? So you're a Bears fan, for those just listening to the show, but he goes from the Bears to the Rams. He was an abysmal wide receiver, 81 last year. That can't be right. 87 points. That doesn't even. Are you kidding me? Last year. So I imagine it's higher. How much higher will it be?
I think it's a lot higher. I truly believe that Allen Robinson could finish as a top 25 wide receiver this year when it's all said and done. Now, a lot of things went wrong for him in Chicago last year. Bad offense, rookie quarterback, dealt with some injuries, didn't really want to be there on the franchise tag, but a lot's going to go right for him in LA this year. Much better offense that he's moving into. Even if you think that he is completely washed, we saw Odell Beckham, who people also thought was completely washed, have a great second half of the season last year with the Rams. They paid him a pretty hefty contract to come in there and be their number 2. They haven't re-signed anyone else to compete with him for that number 2 spot. I really think there's going to be a lot of value to Allen Robinson in that wide receiver 2 role in LA.
Huge bounce back year. As much as I loved Cooper Kupp last year, I think he's too pricey to get this year. I like where I can get Allen Robinson. So I'm in agreement with you there as well.
So AJ Brown, Draft night trade, huge deal. Tennessee to Philadelphia. He was the wide receiver 32 last year with 181 points. Do you think he will be higher or lower with Jalen Hurts and company this season?
AJ Brown disappointed me greatly last year in Tennessee, but I am thrilled for the opportunity he has in Philly. I'm actually another team I'm all in on is the Eagles. I love this offense. I wasn't as big on Jalen Hurts heading into last year, but this year I am, and especially AJ Brown. And the idea that I still think at this point people are overlooking him. They're not viewing him as a top 5, even a top 10 receiver. I've been doing some mock drafts and I like where I can get him. And so I think he'll have a much better year in Philly. Of course, his health is key, but man, look at that body. He's a huge stud. I mean, this is like the kind of wide receiver I want. Big body. I mean, it takes 3-4 guys to bring him down. So I think he's gonna have a monster year there. All right.
I love the comparison too between Davante Smith, who looks like he weighs like 120
I,
pounds, to then AJ Brown, who's just a monster human being next to each other in the wide receiver core. It's just hilarious to me.
it's pretty much you and I. I'm AJ Brown. You're Devonta Smith. So there you go. Russell Wilson goes to Denver, and last year was a weird year for Seattle, for Wilson. QB 15, 243 points. How much better is he going to be in Denver?
So it's interesting because Russell Wilson has these stretches for 4 games where he'll throw 3 touchdowns a game and look like he's the MVP. And then the next 4 weeks after that, he'll throw 3 touchdowns total and he'll kill your fantasy team. I think, though, in Denver, he has a great opportunity to finish as a top 10 QB this year with all the receiving weapons they had. I mean, you add the running back room as well with both Melvin Gordon and Williams there. They've got some good tight ends, great defense. Plus, they are going to be in a division with a lot of other high-powered offenses. So those games that they are
Woo.
playing Kansas City and they're playing Las Vegas and they're playing Los Angeles, he's going to have to be throwing the ball a lot. I'd like him to have a big season this year in Denver.
Yes, it's the big thing for me is I think he's going to be great and put up huge points. Am I willing to pay the price for him? That's where I'm not so because the hype and the excitement around Wilson, it might be too much. So we'll see as we get closer with kind of how the rest of the fantasy community feels about him. But I'm my feeling is it's going to be too much for me.
So
Go
the
ahead.
other big quarterback swap you hinted at it, Matt Ryan going from Atlanta to Indianapolis, finished as the QB 19 last year in Atlanta. Do you think he'll be higher and lower than that?
Oh, baby. Big year for Matt Ryan. I love this offense. The Colts last year, uh, Carson Wentz was atrocious. And I like Carson Wentz. I was all in on Carson Wentz going to the Colts. I kept believing in Carson Wentz. He cost me a fantasy championship because I believed in him. And so now I'm shifting that love that I had for Wentz to Matt Ryan because this is such an opportunity in Indy. The team is there. The team is in place. The offensive line, the running game, the young wide receivers. You got Michael Pittman. You've got Paris Campbell, who's supposed to be coming back healthy. And now you have a reliable Matt Ryan. Now, he's never been a monster fantasy guy, but he has been better than you think a lot of years. He's been steady and where you can get him in drafts, I absolutely love it. You can almost even draft him as a QB2, but I believe he'll crack the top 14 QBs this year. I'm willing to go that high for him. And so he's going to throw some touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor will move get the first downs, move the ball up and down the field. And at times they're going to have to rely on Matt Ryan. He can handle it. He's ready to go. So I'm thrilled about this move for him and the Colts.
I would totally agree with you there. And one interesting note that I found out, because you were just talking about how terrible Carson Wentz was, and I agree, he was really bad. Carson Wentz finished as the QB 13 last year in fantasy, so fringe QB 1. And if Carson Wentz can do that with Indianapolis, there's no reason why Matt Ryan can't finish that high or higher as well with this offense.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you put that in perspective because I'm still burned because he let me down in the fantasy playoffs. But you're right. I mean, over the course of the year, yeah, he still had some decent games, which is why I kept okay. Come on, Wentz, come on, Wentz. So Matt Ryan steps into a really good situation. No question about it.